So Chicago Office 365 user group. One thing I wanted to point out about this user group is that we are focused on Office 365, and we also focus on Azure to a certain extent as well, including the Enterprise Security and Mobility Suite. In Office 365, we talk about Teams, Power Apps, Flow, and a whole bunch of Office development topics, including add-ins and the official framework, as well as identity and access in Azure as well. But the emphasis in this user group is on the technical aspects, right? So we're going to focus a lot on, sort of those technical components that make up all of those things. Michael Blumenthal runs another user group called the Office 365 Adoption User Group that is much more end user and power user focused. That user group is sort of like a complement or a sister user group to our user group in the sense that if you want more of that power user adoption, how to implement the functionality, you go to that user group for those kinds of things. So we do cover a broad range of topics, but like I said, they're more technically focused. So our key objectives for this user group is we're going to try to meet regularly. Obviously, we want to develop community engagement. We are very strongly committed to anybody can speak, participate, run meetings. This is an open forum for meeting and learning and sharing information. We also like to coordinate and promote with other user groups, so feel free to reach out to me or Mark or Sean if you have another user group or event that you want to promote, and we will actually kind of go through some of the upcoming events in a minute. And then we also want to obviously further our understanding and knowledge of Office 365 and the supporting technologies, including Azure and the EMS suite. And then, of course, we have a sort of a fun and relaxed environment. Typically, after the user group meetings, we go out for a drink or two just to kind of relax and kind of chit-chat for a little while. So anyone's welcome to come along for that as well. So our format is we try to meet in person once a month. We have a meeting next month, which I'll announce in a minute, but we're going to skip sort of December because of the holidays, and then we'll pick back up in January again. But other than that, we pretty regularly meet every single month. So, and then for upcoming meetings, we'll talk about upcoming meetings. We also talk about community events that are coming up, and then I also like to spotlight a couple things on something interesting each month. And before we start our technical topic, and then our technical topic is the main presentation for each month. And then, interest permitting, we'll have some sort of networking and social event afterwards. So for upcoming events, next month is going to be on November 30th, and we are going to be back at the Microsoft offices downtown. This, again, is just a temporary location for this month. But we're planning to meet from 6 to 8 p.m. Like we normally do, and the topic is going to be on Flow and Logic Apps from Sean over there, who's presenting that. A tale of two automation and integration.
Engines.
Oh, was I missing engine? Sorry about that. I just copied and pasted wrong.
No, it's two automation and integrations.
That's it, right? That's the end the story. But feel free also, if you have upcoming events that you want to promote through this user group, to let me know, and I'll put them on here as well.
And just a call for speakers as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone, we love for other people to speak as well, so please let us know if you have a topic that you'd like to put on.
In addition to that, part of this, we have a lot of resources available to us. We can do a lot of presentations on a moment's notice. Especially with some of the Microsoft availability we have. If you don't want to do speaking, that's fine. If there's certain topics you want us to present on, I have no problem speaking 12 times a year. I just don't think you guys want to listen to me that often.
No, we don't, actually.
Yeah, so it's a community thing. But in the flip side, if there's like a topic everyone wants to hear some research or questions answered, you just don't want to speak, let us know as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So for upcoming events on November 2nd, we've got this series of workshops we're doing with Microsoft. They're free, all-day events where they're just Power Apps and Flow. This one's Power Apps and Flow. It's called an App in a Day event where you can sign up and go learn how to build a Flow workflow and a Power App form. November 18th is SharePoint Saturday Chicago. It's sort of a last-minute thing they added to do in Chicago on November 18th. This group normally runs the SharePoint Saturday in the suburbs at in Schaumburg, I think. Yeah, and Addison, yeah. That's what I was trying to think of. In Addison at DeVry, they're now also going to try and do an event in Chicago, also at DeVry, at the downtown location. So they're running an event on November 18th. They've already had their call for speakers. I think this event is probably going to be a little small because it's the first time doing it downtown.
They did downtown events for a while, but they stopped, right?
No, I did, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I did the downtown events for a while, and then I stopped.
You
Not pointing fingers at anybody, but.
Yeah, we did. The last one we did was in 2015 at the Microsoft offices. The year before that was in Hard Rock, and I forget where that was the year before that. But Mark and I are speaking. I don't know. Did anyone else submit for that?
I didn't even know.
It was a very last minute. Like, yeah. I just happened to catch it in Twitter. Like they posted something, and I submitted for it. So
These are the speeches, or call for the speakers, selected the speakers. Then called Sean for sponsorship.
Yeah. So there's also SharePoint Fest Chicago coming up, December 5th through the 8th. And I'm sorry, I don't know if you were speaking, either you guys are speaking at that, the SharePoint Fest?
I am. I've got 2 sessions.
Oh, you are? Okay. So if I would have known that, I would have put that on here. I'm sorry.
You were speaking and you didn't put it on there.
Okay, we can put on the next one.
You know what I did? I copied this from last month. And last month, no one of you were speaking, so so next time I'll put it on for next month. How about that?
What are you speaking of?
Oh gosh, one of them is, I know I'm speaking on building communication sites, which is just like end user stuff.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, like click and point, flashy stuff. And then I've got another dev topic, and I don't remember. So I can tell you later.
So sorry for the plug.
No, this is.
There's also the adoption user group event. User group is holding an event. One of the nights, I think it's Tuesday night on the 5th. I can't remember exactly which night, but I think that's when it is. They're holding an event, their user group meeting on that night at SharePoint Fest in McCormick Place. So that's another thing that's going on December 5th through the 8th. So, and I think they're having a panel discussion with a group of people. So
yeah, it's happening, but we're not sure where because McCormick Place charges so much for food and drink, so we're trying to work out the menu.
Food is $500 a case of beer.
Yeah, and the food is outrageous.
Yeah, to bring it in there.
No, you have to buy it from them. Ugh, that's a case of beer.
Yeah. So like I said, if you have anything that you want to announce or put on the community events for each user group, just let me know. And last, I want to just do our little spotlight. A number of us here were at Ignite. By the way, these slides that I'm going through right now, as well as I hope your guys' slides, the speaker slides, we will post to the meetup site at the end of the talk, probably tomorrow or something. So when I post links in here and stuff, you can download the slides or look at the slides and click on the links. You don't have to remember this stuff. But one of the things that was very important as a follow-up to Ignite was related to the SharePoint and OneDrive announcements. There were a ton of them. And Jeff Teeper posted a link or a blog with all of the announcements. It's really helpful to look through that. I've got the link in here. I also posted the video library from the Ignite session, so if you want to go back and watch any of the videos, you can do that there. And one of the other things I just sort of wanted to highlight was the new SharePoint Admin Center. That's rolling out to Office 365 in calendar year 2018. You can also sign up for a limited release if you've got a tenant that you want to play around with it on. There's a form on that blog that I've linked there that Bill Bear has for signing up for the limited release admin center.
Have any of you guys used that yet? Or played it yet? I haven't.
No, I haven't even filled. I feel kind of guilty, like I should have filled out the form or something, but I haven't. So.
I signed up for the preview of the adoption center content pack for Power BI.
Yeah.
I played that for a while, and now that's GA now.
Right. Yeah.
Long overdue, in my opinion.
Well, unless you're a tenant administrator.
Yeah, I mean, but you can do it in your practice tenants or whatever. I actually went out to my tenant and I was like, why don't I have the SharePoint Admin Center, new SharePoint Admin Center yet? And then I looked at the blog and I'm like, oh, it's next year. And then I saw the form and I was like, maybe I should fill out the form.
I mean, the killer feature on that is it's going to combine, it's going to give you one-stop shop for groups, based team sites, and communication sites.
And you can just manage all that in one file.
Yeah, one place, which is a battle I've been fighting with clients for a long time.
Yeah.
Here, create your group, create your communication site. Where do I manage it? Well, 3 different places. Okay.
All right, with that, I'm going to turn it over to you guys. I just need to pass you control, so 1 second here.
I'll intro, and I'll do.
Give me 1 second, though. I need to pass it over to you, Adam. Okay. Go ahead and see if you can present now. The stuff. You will need to plug in so the people in here can see though too. Is that important? I don't know what you need there.
You need an adapter in there. Just come straight line.
No.
Oh, that's right. We're going to get this thing. Because what's recorded is not that, is it? Is that what's being recorded? Or is it my view?
No, your view is being recorded, so you need to click on the screen to change your screen that's being presented or being recorded.
Which is fine.
There you go. Now you're good.
Are you using the presenter view?
You're good now.
All right, cool.
That's good. There you go.
We don't touch anything ever again. Okay, so this talk is called Building Intelligent Bots for Microsoft Teams. And just so everyone knows, I talked to Mark about this ahead of time. Right, this is our PSC template here, so I'm not trying to shove PSC down your throat, but that's why the logo is on there. But
Listen.
right, it's gone. We don't want it anymore. No, we have multiple logos. So this is Building Intelligent Bots for Microsoft Teams, and this is a look at our agenda. So a couple things. We're going to do introductions. I'll introduce myself. I'll introduce Adam, who's actually going to do the bulk of the talk, the technical stuff here. We're going to talk a little bit about the Teams app platform, and that's going to lead into where do bots come in to Microsoft Teams. Microsoft Teams has a pretty, I'll say it's a robust app platform, but it's pretty new, and not a lot of people know about it, so we'll talk about that a little bit. Then we'll get into the bot framework and writing bots. So what can bots do? Where can they live? How do they integrate with Teams? The majority of this is really going to be hands-on, technical. Adam's going to show you how to build a bot, and then we're going to integrate with Microsoft Teams and demo that. So, and then if we have time, I have a couple other bot demos that we can jump into if it makes sense to talk about that. So I want everyone to pay attention. It's really nifty animation here.
Wow!
I worked on that. It was like 2 days of dev. After I built
Shortly? See the smiley face? See the 2 eyes in the smiley face?
Right, so
That's awesome. He's got the tongue. Yeah, that's great.
the tongue was, that was another like 6 hours.
Yeah, right.
All right, so introduction. My name is Chris Johnson. I'm also a Microsoft MVP, and my MVP is in Office development. I've been doing SharePoint dev for 8 or so years. Now a lot for Office 365. I've actually been focusing a lot more on SharePoint framework, a little bit of Teams dev recently. I am a director of business solutions at a company called PSC Group, where Adam also works. And a personal note, I'm a new dad. There's the little rascal. That was a couple months ago, I think. And I've got another one on the way. So that's a little bit about me. And then I'm going to let Adam introduce himself here.
That was an awesome picture, by the way.
Right. Yeah, my kid's like, you don't need your face.
Right. I'm in control here.
And also, he's naked.
Yeah.
He's pretty much par for the course.
Right.
All right, so I'm Adam Lepley. I'm a solution architect at TSC. I do really a little of everything. The bulk of my experience is in .NET, custom .NET applications, but then a fair amount of JavaScript the last few years, and done some SharePoint and doing SharePoint framework type stuff before that was an actual real thing. Just hacking my way through it. And yeah, Chris did not have a photo when he made this deck, so he put that in place, and I did not touch it.
Actually, I had one. I like this one more.
We all want to be him, but you know. All right, so
this is me. I'm going to talk through this. Okay, so this was covered really well at Ignite, if any of you got to go to the session. But the Microsoft Teams app platform is actually comprised of 4, like I'll call them pillars. And so what I want to talk about for just a minute is kind of how you would develop on top of Microsoft Teams. So everyone knows, and maybe if you don't know, I'll give an introduction to Microsoft Teams. So Microsoft Teams, for those of you who don't know, is a chat-based workspace. It is essentially Microsoft's answer to Slack. But the power of Microsoft Teams, in addition to being a chat-based workspace, which leaves a lot of your conversations in context and allows you to bring in file integration and split your teamwork into channels and one-on-one chats, is also that it's already integrated with the Office 365 ecosystem. So it sits on top of Office 365 Groups as a membership service. It sits on top of Azure AD as an identity management service. And it has a fairly robust application development platform that's really in the process of rolling out. So it's not, some of it, as I'll note on here, is in preview. Some of it is live. And actually, some of it can really only be accomplished by sideloading. There's not really an enterprise deployment model yet. So what you're seeing is I think, pretty much can be summed up as this is the future of developing on top of Office 365, specifically for Teams. But I say on top of Office 365 in general because I think Teams as a product really unites the Office 365 suite, right? So pretty much every piece of Office 365 can be managed or touched through Teams, whether that be SharePoint for file management or Office 365 groups for membership. Or using, integrating things like Planner for task management, and then it has a bunch of other integration capabilities as well that I'm going to walk through. So before I move into developing on Microsoft Teams, does anyone here have questions about Microsoft Teams as a product first? And I know we're recording this for other people, but I want to try to keep this a smaller conversation. No, you guys are all familiar with Teams, then. Okay, so I will not go too far into that. So, so building on top of Microsoft Teams is the same as how you consume Microsoft Teams. There are 4, I'll call it pillars, that you can build custom for Microsoft Teams, and you can package these all together in the form of an app. So the first one is tabs, and tabs are probably the largest component of developing on top of Microsoft Teams, and probably the simplest because it's really just a canvas for your app. So if you've written a single-page application, you can pretty much package that and deploy it as a tab for Microsoft Teams. You have to write some contextual integration components that allow users to add a tab. So you basically add the ability to sign in, and then the ability to join it to a particular team or conversation. But that's what a tab looks like as far as development goes. Anytime you add a tab in Microsoft Teams, whether that's Planner or Visual Studio Team Services, etc., that's how that has been packaged. And I'll get into that. I've got a slide on each one of these. The second is connectors. So connectors are rich, actionable notifications within Teams. So I used to call them push only, but now they're actionable. So you can do more things. So you can get a notification within one of your Teams channels after you add a connector, and then you can take action on it. Third is what are called compose extensions, and these are currently free, so these are not they're not live yet, but Microsoft's going to give us the ability to write these. So if you use Teams and you've used the little Giphy icon or the image inserter or like the stickers, I think it calls them, those are compose extensions. So you can insert things that are related to potentially a line of business application as well, and have the ability to sort of pin that to your compose window. That's called a compose extension.
Oh, hang on a second.
Yeah.
I don't get what compose extensions are.
Okay.
So they're like, for what?
So a compose extension is inserting something into your actual text composer window. So an example I give is the Giphy box. If you've used the little
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So think of that, but in terms of a line of business app. So maybe
Like what? Like what's
so,
an example? Like
I think a good example is probably like a work item in source control.
Oh.
Right? So you're saying, hey, I'm working on this work item. Instead of sending the hyperlink to that work item, you could create an extension that says,
right
choose a work item number, and it'll add it in there. And you can choose how it's visually going to be formatted too. So it can be formatted in a nice formatted way of HTML that then gets sent within your message.
So what you're saying is you can have a conversation within Teams with a group or whoever, and instead of only being limited to the stupid little Giphy things, you could be doing something that's actually work-related and useful and linked to some outside business application and put it right into the conversation without having just to click through to a link.
So if you're working, let's say you built a finance application, right?
Yeah.
And you want to be able to pull in numbers and have them show nicely formatted charts.
You
could say, hey, here's the chart from last quarter's income statement, and you could insert that as an extension into your.
That's actually pretty awesome.
Very useful. I mean, I think.
Now, does that fall into the sometime later preview mode
it's
thing?
It's currently in preview. It's not a GA.
Not GA. Okay.
It's in advanced developer preview, which I think means close to GA.
Okay.
And you know what I didn't do, and I will do after this, is I've got a list of resources. And I don't think I made a slide for them, but I've got a list of them, and I'll send them out as part of this.
Actually, if you wouldn't mind, could you just chunk them onto like a Taylor slide?
Slide.
Put them on the end slide, and I'll post it back.
I will do that. And a lot of the visuals that I took here are taken right from that documentation. So,
Okay.
That's good. And then the last part is bots. Okay, so you've got these three components, and then the last one is bots, which bots are AI that you write. And we've had a discussion as to whether or not it's really AI or if it's really consuming AI, but it's AI that you write as a developer that allows users to interact with your application. And that can be done on the level of either a channel or a one-on-one chat. So I touch on each of these, and I probably should have just done this first as opposed to introduce each one and then talk about it. But I go through kind of each of the components here. So the first is tabs, which, as I mentioned, it's basically a single-page application that you authenticate a user to. You develop a couple of things on top of your application. So if you, for example, have a single-page application that you wanted to turn into a tab, you would have to add what's called a configuration page, which is when the user adds your tab in Teams. That allows them to sign into the service. Your Teams app then holds that configuration for them, right? So the user doesn't have to sign in every time they access the tab. And it also allows you to write an interface for updating the tab settings. So an example, and I keep going back to like the Visual Studio Team Services tab if you've ever used it. You add the tab, it says, okay, what account do you want to use? It prompts for credentials and then allows you to pick what project you want to show. That's an example of a tab. It is pretty straightforward. After that, it's just HTML displayed in iframe. So again, you can basically wrap any single page application as a tab. Some obviously are going to work better than others, so don't go wrapping your like 25 modal dialogue built in 1996 app. You could do that. It's going to look like crap though. Specifically, any app that creates modal dialogues isn't going to work in Teams. I can tell you that firsthand. But that's what a tab is.
Is a tab aware of your login credentials?
Yes.
Okay.
So you have two contexts, right? So you have your context that you create with your application that your tab is holding, and then you have the context that you've created with Teams. So your application may not be aware of that context unless you pass it to it, right? So if you have SharePoint or Office 365 context, your application can consume that if you want it to. It doesn't have to though, right? Does that make sense? Does that answer that question? Okay. Any other questions about tabs? No? Okay.
I'm assuming that it's using behind the scenes. I was to say when browsers are targeting, here's web content, right?
Yeah.
My assumption is.
So it is. So that part I don't know.
I'm pretty sure they're using Electron, and I'm pretty sure it's Chromium.
Yeah. So it is Electron. I can tell you that.
Okay, so that's
Right. So that's
okay.
which is Chromium browser.
Thick clients, mobile clients, and web clients, right?
Yes.
Is all these extensions portable across all three platforms?
No.
Good one.
Well, they should, right? But the mobile client, for example, doesn't always support tabs. Some tabs are supported right now, and some aren't. To be honest, I don't know what the rule is for what is or isn't supported.
That's interesting.
Because I do know that certain tabs just don't work. Good question.
Yeah, really.
Okay. Moving on. Okay, so connectors are, think of them as push notifications for your chat, for your team channel, and this says push only, and that's actually not true. I changed that later, but we failed to collaborate on this. So my bad, they're not push only, they are actually actionable. So I realized that on this slide I said they're push only, and then I said they're actionable, which is, they contradict each other. So the idea of connectors is you can have a service, that service has some sort of a hook that when something gets updated can post a message within your team's channel and give you an alert on that, and then you can take action on it. So when Adam starts talking about cards in the bot interface, very similar in terms of you can have actionable messages. A good example in my Visual Studio Team Services example, I guess, is a work item updated notification, right? If someone goes and checks something in, or I've got a build completed or build failed, I can have my connector set up to get a notification when the build fails. So in that example, I've got a configuration screen where, as a developer, I own that configuration. I say what events do you want to subscribe to, and then my service on the back end is going to listen. It's usually going to be webhook based. It's going to listen for those events, and then I can post a message to you. Full disclosure, I've not developed a connector. So if you have very technical questions about that, I probably can't answer them. I can point you to some good documentation.
All this is really.
Talk about the use cases for this. Like, what are they?
So the one example I gave is like, again, work item updated, but any sort of notification that you might want to get a push notification.
Incoming, right?
Incoming.
Yeah.
But then you could, for example, say, I got a build failed notification. If I own that connector, right, I'm deving it, I might give the user an option to do something like as simple as navigate to that build definition that failed, or I might give them the option to, open up Visual Studio and pull down the build, or
so you could create a channel there that says like, system events or build events, and then instead of having to look for emails or other triggers when things happen on the schedule, you can have it automatically communicate information through that channel in Teams,
right.
So that as you're working with Teams and your other applications, persistent chats, collaboration documents, that information stored here as well.
Right. So I keep going back to the CSTS example just because I think it works really well. But like when we use Teams for development projects, we have a dev channel in our Microsoft team, and then in that we get alerts for certain actions in VSTS. Depending on if you're a PM and maybe in your general tab or your general channel, you want to get alerts for things like bug posted or work item updated or story accepted. If you're a dev, you probably want to get alerts on build failed, bug created, bug accepted, etc.
But yeah, we could carry this even further, right? Like any kind of flow off of Microsoft Office could essentially produce a notification that plugs into Teams that you could then have some sort of action based on that flow. So anything like a new hire request to do something, a training request, a form, or whatever.
You have the ability to make it actionable, which means you can show the user an HTML form within that.
And this essentially shows up as a notification, like a Skype chat almost, right? Like
but in context of your team.
Right.
So, and it's kind of hard to see here, but there's an example at the bottom here where it's basically you can format it, it's going to show you a message, and then you have the ability.
But as we start to move Skype into Teams, it all sort of becomes the same thing, and you open up Skype, and you have or you have Teams open all the time, and then any workflows that feed into your connectors will notify you of any action you need to take on something. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Right on. Okay. Compose extensions, I'm not going to dive deep into this, but we covered it when we talked about it. Ideally, this is your ability to insert rich text formatted HTML into your text message that you're composing. So if you notice on this example here, and this is the example I used before, the DSTS one, you can insert a user story. And it's not just a hyperlink, right? It's an actual visual representation of the user story. And then if you see in the bottom right corner there, you can basically package this extension as an icon that users can use the same way that they use the GIF icon or what it ends up being.
So it packages the whole story into the icon, essentially. Yeah.
Or the interface to pull it.
Yeah, gotcha.
So you might have an icon that looks like a bug, and then you click it, and it pulls up a browser that shows you all your recent bugs, and then you insert the one you want into your compose. Okay. Cool. Yeah. The best analogy that I can come up for this is like recently if you use iOS, the App Store for iMessages. So if any of you use iOS, right, now you can insert GIFs or whatever, same idea.
Yeah.
All right, bots. So this is where we actually wanted to end up today, and this is AI interacting with users. So this is a dialogue. A lot of these other things have been pushed with a little bit of pull. You know, the goal of them is to allow the user. So for the tab, it's really mostly nothing being pushed to the user. The user is interacting with your application. With connectors, it's much more about pushing information to them. With compose extensions, it's much more about the user inputting data. A bot is meant to be the combination of all those, which is conversational, and it gives you the option to really lead the user through, I'm going to call it a user interface journey that really wasn't available before. So we've talked about bots as sort of the user interface of the future because you can, in many cases, insinuate what a user wants to do based on having a conversation with them, which is different than interacting with a user interface, a visual user interface. So from a development standpoint, you have two scopes for bots. One is in your team, so it's called team scope, which is a little confusing. I think they should rename that channel scope because you can add bots. You can add multiple of the same bots to the same team if it's in different channels. So it really should be called channel scope, but technically it's called team scope. Or you can have one-on-one bots. So you can just have a bot that anyone in your organization can ping if they know what the bot is, and you can make them enterprise discoverable, or you can make them public and hosted in Microsoft's bot store.
Is there, I mean, maybe you're going to get to this, but are there some hoops to jump through for that second one?
Yes, there are.
Is it like the App Store kind of thing?
Yes, it has to be approved.
Okay.
If you want to, right now, to make it basically enterprise available, you have to sideload it, and everyone kind of has to know what the URL is. I don't know what the enterprise deployment model is going to be. If it's been announced yet, I'm not aware of it. As of tonight, they had not.
They don't have one. Yeah.
I mean, do you have the ability to basically package all of these up into something called an app for Teams?
Yeah.
But I don't know what the deployment model is, and maybe I'm just not aware yet.
Yeah.
But that is the idea that should be enterprise deployable, similar to like a SharePoint app package or something.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's the Teams package that we were talking about, and then you have the ability right now to sideload them, and then ultimately coming is going to be a more enterprise-capable deployment model. So this talk, the rest of it, is really going to focus on building bots. And I think more importantly than building bots for Teams, it's building bots, because really bots are, you can build a bot for lots of channels. Teams is just one of them. So I wanted to kind of go through the Teams context to get us to bots so that you can understand kind of why you would want to build a bot for Teams. And now I'm going to turn it over to Adam, who's going to talk about what it's like to build a bot, what some of the services you would consume to build a bot, and then he's going to take it kind of full circle and say this is what it looks like when we take a bot and publish it in Teams.
Awesome. Thanks.
All right. Let's build some bots. Let's talk about them first. So as Chris said, we kind of touched on creating a bot and and how it interacts with Teams. But Microsoft has had this out for it's been well over a year now. And they started really focusing on how do you make chatbots, Skype being their first deployment targets. But they've extended it beyond that, and I'll touch on some of those in the later slides. But we see we have Slack, Skype, Teams, Facebook Messenger even. The point is Microsoft said, you know what, chatbots, they're becoming popular as a use case, and there's, we'll talk about there's a business use case even for these types of things. So what they're saying is, well, wouldn't it be nice if we had a platform we can write a bot once and then target all these different channels? And that's what they come out with. And right now, like I said, it's developed by Microsoft, and it's currently free. The framework's completely free and open source, but they're just hoping that you use Azure to deploy it. It's actually not a requirement, as long as you either have a node or IS server. You can deploy it yourself in your own environment if you choose to.
Because they make it painfully easy for you to deploy it.
But they make it painfully easy to deploy in Azure, of course, and we'll touch on a little bit of that. Like I said, so the build box, skill set wise, technology wise, you can either use C# or ASP.NET, kind of using a web API, or you can use JavaScript and Node. Now, actually, for this demo, because at the time that I wrote this, although the bulk of my experience is in C#, I want to challenge myself, and this is actually the demo that we'll show today is in Node using JavaScript, just for fun.
Really, just Node? You can't do any of the other JavaScript frameworks?
No, they're relying on you to use Node for the server side, because it's a server.
The client side stuff, you can use anything you want.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Client side, it can be literally anything.
And you can pull in whatever libraries you need. And actually, in my demo, I'll be pulling in some additional JavaScript libraries.
Okay,
like that.
But for hosting it has,
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
Or C# in Azure IS.
Okay.
Azure.
Got it.
Yeah.
All right, so some of the use cases for this, and some of these are kind of focused on a business use case, because that's what most of us care about. Things like service ticket generation, scheduling and booking. This is the obvious example that they show a lot. Enterprise data retrieval. So, give me, you just text the bot, give me the numbers or give me the numbers from last month, and it responds back to you with a chart, something like that. Automation trigger. Tell the bot, can you please trigger off this build? Why not? Simple data entry form. So as we'll see with bots, we can have a two-way communication. It can ask a question, we'll respond, and we kind of go through that workflow. Reporting, alerting, FAQ is another one. They have a general question, and then they can perform potentially like a search against some type of large data set. All things possible with bots.
When you can become like a determinant.
What's that?
Become self-aware. Self-aware.
We got a long way to go before that, and you'll see that. So
Adam builds kill switches and all of his labs.
terminate. So
You know you're alive. Still.
So with some inputs and outputs, obviously text, whether it be rich or plain text, supported. We can also send and receive images. Videos up to a minute currently, so 50 megabytes is currently the limit. And then you can also do, which is really interesting, custom authentication. What if I need to authenticate with a third-party solution, through the chat interface, it can actually prompt open up a kind of a modal window, and you can do that authentication, and the box can then, from there, get those tokens and then communicate with that third party through the user. So some other interactive responses in addition to text is they also have some of these other ones. One that's called Hero Card, where I can have an image, I have some buttons. I can, if I want to show multiple things, I can have a carousel, so I can swipe through it. Or if I'm, giving the user a receipt back, there's an interaction for that. These are kind of like templates that are predefined for you, and you can customize some of it a little bit within that, but you're kind of restricted to the template. But recently, last year, they came out with something called adaptive cards, where you can really customize the interaction that comes back and completely control all this. And what it does is it's taking the JSON and you actually, I think, provide it HTML, and it will figure out how to render that for you. And then take care of figuring out, okay, how does Slack deal with this? How does Skype dealing with this? That's all abstracted from you.
They really just write an HTML and JavaScript at that point.
If you really want to control the interaction and what that card looks like coming back, it can be whatever you want.
Right.
Yeah, it can be very rich content. So where do bots live? These are currently, as it stands today, all the places bots can live. Skype, Facebook Messenger, GroupMe. Some of these are cool. Some of the new ones, they did actually finally come out with Skype for Business, although, you know, that will fade into Teams at some point. But it's there. Slack, Cortana, that's very interesting. So we'll touch on that a little bit later. But, you know,
Adam, when you say it's where they live, you're talking about
what are the
where you
channels that you can deploy?
where you interact with the bot, you know, to ask questions or whatever.
Okay, absolutely.
So I didn't realize, like, you could write a bot that you could deploy and interact with on Teams that you could also interact with on Facebook.
Yep,
the same bot.
Same exact bot, same exact code.
Wow. Okay.
Yes, and that and or if I have Windows 10 and have Cortana on the bottom, I can interact with it using voice.
Wow.
So full disclosure, Adam and I did this talk when we did it at, I think, SharePoint Cloud Saturday, right?
Mm-hmm.
A few months, 6 months ago, 5 months
Yeah,
ago,
May, yeah.
right? We didn't do it with the Teams focus, right? We did it with a couple of other platforms, and we were able to kind of, just add Teams on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I don't know, Adam, we talked yesterday, it was like, okay, add it to Teams.
Mm-hmm.
And it took you a couple hours, right?
No,
Still
less than that.
Okay. Don't brag.
Some other really notable ones too is just because we have these platforms like Skype that we can interact with, we can also take this bot, we can embed it into our own existing web application, and they give you kind of what they call embedded web chat. So you can really embed this yourself. And they also have something I don't show on here, what they call a direct line. So if I wanted to really create my own user interface, whether it's a mobile application or my own completely custom HTML interface, they expose a REST endpoint where I can interact with it.
Okay, are you going to get into that? Because I'm kind of wondering what the overlay is, right? Like, what's the overhead for interacting with the bot behind the scenes? Is it really just an endpoint?
It really is just an endpoint.
So you just put in a query string that's like got some a question mark at the end?
I don't dig into that. But
okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Essentially, you're correct.
Okay.
Yeah. But they extract a lot from you, and you'll kind of see that as I go through the demo. And then we got Twilio too, so SMS, right? Normal text-based messaging. There's an interaction there. They're already connected for you. Now, looking a little beyond bots, we can, like I said, because it does expose the REST endpoints, it can be hooked up to literally anything, including things like Amazon Alexa and Google Home. There's actually already some open source projects where people have ported or created wrappers around exposing it to Alexa. And I would not be surprised if we're just a few months away from Microsoft is supporting this fully, especially since recently they did some collaboration between Alexa and Cortana. So I really wouldn't be surprised if that just becomes another checkbox. And you'll see that in the demo that all these platforms that I showed you, these are all just checkboxes. Okay, I want to surface on Facebook Messenger. I have to go to Facebook Messenger, get a couple keys, plug it in. Microsoft takes care of all that communication for me. So now bots are nice, but they're stupid unless we try to make them smart, right? So
like kids,
just like kids. And the demo I'll show today, I'll be starting off with a blank, very stupid bot, and then we'll kind of elaborate on from there. But and again, this is kind of Microsoft Play. Why would they invest in this and essentially give it out for free? Because they're hoping to use their other cognitive services to leverage it, make it more intelligent, and we'll touch on one of these in particular, which is the language understanding intelligence service, what they call Lewis. That one is really key for abstracting a lot of complexity and building a bot out.
I don't think you guys were here, but before you guys were coming, we were talking about a recent study that was done to compare the IQ of the different artificial intelligence groups, and the Bing search API came out about like 40 or something, which is like a 6-year-old kid, right? So it's kind of funny, like. So what you're saying is that these bots can plug into that artificial intelligence as a resource for. Yeah.
Maybe I'm sending a photo, and then I want the bot to know what it is that person sent you. I can tap into the computer vision API, and I actually used that computer vision API with a client recently, and it's very good. It's actually scary. That I can send a photo, and it gives me a lot of context on what it sees in the photo, give me that text, let me know what portion of the photo that they found that dog or that car or those, maybe it's some numbers.
This aligns really well with Microsoft Vision AI for everyone, right? And we talked about this a little bit before the meeting started too, that the idea is that your developers don't have to write these models, these learning models. We just use the APIs. We can make our apps smart and let smarter people in us write the APIs that sit behind them.
And you touched on a good thing, and I'll have to say, playing around with some of these, but I don't know the landscape. And on the Microsoft side, we're big Azure fans, we have all the administrative subscriptions and things. Does Google, Apple, Facebook, or whatever players have comparable features available?
Yeah, Google, I would say,
or Amazon,
when we're dealing with cognitive services, I would say the biggest comparable service is Google. We did find that we were for a previous client we were using computer vision API. It was good. Google's was a little better, and they ended up going with Google. But both were drop-dead simple APIs to leverage. And then that was before, in specific with the computer vision API, Microsoft actually came up with something like kind of trump Google's. We actually can train it yourself in the context of whatever that business scenario was. You can actually feed it, and it will actually use neural nets and allow you to export that neural net, and it gets kind of nutty. So I would say even Microsoft at this point, when it relates to computer vision, which is a really big one, right?
Yeah. We're not talking like TensorFlow. We're talking services.
Correct.
You guys, in your
simple REST, honestly, in all these simple REST API calls.
And you would say, in your opinion, Microsoft is leading this chase.
Yes, they're investing a lot, and they were, but Google's not, Google's also a big fish in this. So both of those. AWS, I'm not seeing the same emphasis.
Well, that's kind of what I've been noticing, but I didn't know what Chris said. It was just my ignorance.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's those two players. So, all right, and I think that should. Okay, so some hosting options, obviously. Azure web app, Azure Functions is a beautiful fit for this. Because I don't want to pay for it if no one's communicating with the bot. I will say Azure Functions tends to, if I haven't been using it for a few days, that first time it gets hit a little slow, then it kind of ramps up again. Warm it up. So if it's a business scenario, probably not a big deal. Or like I said, you can self-host this. But the demo I'm actually going to show today is actually running off Azure Functions. So we'll see a little of that. All right, now. I did want to point out,
I might get sued after this.
I was going to say.
Yesterday, it's like, oh, let's look at I'm like, wow, that is adorable. That's all Chris. I'm not going to take credit for that.
You're adorable in like a freaky kind of way with the square head and the.
I hope I ruined someone's childhood.
Yeah, right.
All right, that's awesome. All right. So some of
that's pretty good though. That's awesome. Yeah, we told that. There you go. The next sticker right there.
Totally worth it. So some of the steps that we're going to go through in a moment. We're going to create a service in Azure Function. Actually, I did pre-create that, but I do have a walkthrough on how I did that, just because I didn't want to attempt to demo gods. Then we're going to create a starter bot. We're going to use Lewis, so we're actually going to use one of the intelligent services. And then we'll configure Lewis, and I'll explain why we're doing that. How does it fit? How does it become very useful in this type of environment? We'll go from there. So let's go to the demo. Now, I will say I am literally starting from scratch and building the bot. Well, this could go really wrong, but let's have some fun.
There isn't a demo until you see it.
Exactly. So feel free, if I do something stupid, point it out, or if you have a question, just ask. The one thing I want to do is
using a Mac.
Yeah, I am using a Mac. That's because I am in a project that's using Xamarin. I am kind of semi-new to the Mac world. Not a bad OS.
You're a fan right now.
I'm kind of a fan.
At the end of the AirPods tucked away behind his computer. I saw him really.
Moving on. All right, so I'm just going to walk through just the creation of this really quick, just so you have a sense for what's involved. But then I'll actually jump into the out-of-the-box bot, and we'll expand from there. So going to Azure, we just type in bot service. We click the create button, and give it a name. Now, I guess before I get a little further, I always forget to mention this until I start programming. Let's talk about what the bot is I'm intending to build. So I'm actually going to intend to build a bot that allows you to create a Trello card in Trello. So actually what we're going to be going through is an experience where we're actually doing a system integration with a completely third-party system. So,
which is probably a pretty, like, if you're talking enterprise, right, I mean, it's probably a pretty common use case. A lot of what we do is integrations work, right? You're simplifying the interface and doing it.
And it really raises the question of, you know, why are chatbots interesting? Well, not everything, in my opinion, needs an elaborate UI around it. And what's really nice is I can create this pretty much no UI solution, and now I have it and it lives everywhere. I can go to my desktop application, go to my mobile client, and have this interaction, and either trigger a process off. Maybe there's an approval process that this system can facilitate. You know, it's really interesting. So give it a name. Development progress exceeded. Then it asks, okay, create a Microsoft ID. Actually guides me through that whole process. So pretty simple.
And these all your slides you captured, or is this just something pulled from there?
No, I actually captured all these.
Okay.
Yeah.
And for those that care, there's also videos that kind of help here as well.
Correct. Yeah. So my Trello bot, you know, give me a password. I really got a lot of these, so I'm not going to. Yeah. Again, it guides me through this whole process. So what's nice now at this point, as you can see in the previous slide, you know, it asks you, okay, what do you want to do? Do you want to do a, oh, you can't see it. You want to do a C# one, or do you want to use Node.js? So actually, there's a decision point there, and then they got these predefined templates that you can choose from. The one that we're going to use is called a language understanding, which helps me create that Lewis service for me and makes that connection for me, so I don't have to deal with passing the keys around or anything like that.
What's the bottom right there?
Question and answer.
Oh, okay. I thought it was something quantum, but I'm like, you know.
But it's nice.
I saw the video or the release. Yeah, so.
Oh yeah. So then I go ahead and connect it to Lewis. Boring. Provisioning your bot. Still taking time. And then I get to the screen. So this is the screen I'm going to jump to in a minute. There's a couple things I did have to do to slightly provision it. So there's 2 JavaScript libraries that I'm using for this bot. So I go ahead and add it. So there's one which is JavaScript library someone wrote to actually communicate with Trello. So I don't have to do that work. It's just a light wrapper.
Just adding the Trello API.
Pretty much, yeah. And then I bring in the Q library, which is just helping with JavaScript promises. That's pretty much it. And then I go back to here. I run npm install, not very exciting, and then we'll get out of this. So this is where the demo starts.
This is all in Azure.
And it does happen that fast. You know.
It's that fast.
And these tools are amazing.
Yeah. Oh, it's really just all that it shows you is just one big wizard, pretty much. I mean, you jump around a little bit, but it guides you through the whole process. All right, so I'm opening the bots. Now, what they did with this, and I don't have to do it like this. It does make for a nice presentation. They actually have an in-app developing experience using what they call Monaco, which is a variant of VS Code within your browser. And assuming
did you guys use VS Code?
Yep.
Good stuff.
I don't get a program.
Oh, it sounded so sad.
I don't get programs.
That's good for being a pre-sales engineer.
I saw him yesterday cleaning the toilets in the bathroom.
Oh, so you got downgraded. Okay.
Not to be exciting if
He was mumbling something under his breath. I don't know, it was completely incoherent.
One failed project.
Yeah, right. You know, the dog kind of stuff. So VS Code for the, I mean, I guess since this is recorded, right? It's a great lightweight, I don't know what you want, IDE, I guess, right? But it's a lightweight IDE, great for front-end development, and it's a lot of modules.
I've never used it before. Is that they introduced it like 3 years ago, right? It's completely browser-based. It's like
Not browser-based.
Oh, it's not?
It's a local install, but so I mean, if people in the Mac world are pretty used to, especially a lot of people in the open source world are used to like Sublime. I mean, it's not. If
is
you
it like
think of Visual
Eclipse too,
Studio,
like Eclipse?
well, so think of Visual Studio and Eclipse, which are your like hour and a half installed, 16 gig download, all that stuff. Visual Studio Code is the opposite. It installs in 20 seconds. It's a lightweight text editor, and then you add extensions.
For what you need.
It's totally built for front-end development. But it's powerful enough where you can add an extension that has a full-blown PowerShell CLI, or a Node CLI, or Git CLI, all built in.
I don't know why I've never used it.
So just play with it. Go download it, and you'll be hooked.
I like it better than Visual Studio if I'm just doing JavaScript work. Anything outside JavaScript world, Visual Studio is the answer. But it is nice to be lightweight like that.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So, this is their in-app experience. Now, like I said, I did those things. This is completely what it generates for you outside of me doing the npm install to bring those additional libraries. So this is literally starting from scratch. So right now, as it stands, this is a pretty stupid bot. So now what they do give you is this nice little ability to test it while you develop.
So I don't want to. I'm sorry to interrupt right away. But is this something that's immediately deployable? If you create a SharePoint add-in in Visual Studio, you can press F5 and it does hello world right off the bat.
So
I'm just curious if this is constructed the same way.
Let's find out. So I'm going to give it a hi. Let me move this.
Well, you also targeted it to Twilio, right? So that might be different than out of the box.
Well, no, this is
completely out of the box. I literally just created this thing, went through the steps.
But Doug's question was, is it immediately deployable? Which to deploy it, you have to host it, and then you also have to connect it to a channel, right? So there's no channel here.
But what are you testing it in right there?
Built-in
So let me get to it.
Yeah, I'll let better than I do.
Right now, I just communicated with it. I had an interaction there, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And then right now it says, sorry, I did not understand this.
Right.
Because it's dumb. And if I see it, if I look at the code slightly, right now there's just the on default and send session, sorry, I didn't understand.
That's the answer to everything, basically.
Yeah. Let me add something to this, right? Let's say test. I'm going to save that. Kind of reload it. Let me ask the same question. Come on. Wow. I'm doing this all night, so hopefully, it'll speed up. Okay. No, again.
So by the way, this is churning here. This bot that you built, there's no Azure function involved at this point yet, right?
Azure. So this is right now living on top of
Azure. So all of the runtime code that's running here is actually the Azure function.
Correct.
Handling that. Okay, thank you.
Correct. Now, so you see, I modified the code. I saw it.
And your question kind of blew my mind.
Yeah, right. How quickly that goes.
Wait, that just kind of blew my mind. So this is an Azure function. This whole thing.
Yes. Oh. Now, I just made that change. Now, one thing I did do is I hooked this up to Teams. It was very simple to do. Actually, it was trivial. And if I test that over here,
I couldn't do it.
I should see that, and I should see that my change was also just done.
That's awesome.
So really, it actually is.
Yes.
Like, you hooked it up to the channel already.
I'm just going to totally start messing with everyone in our Teams environment.
Now, how did I do that? I'll jump to that really quick. I do have a channels area here, and all I did was come over here, select Teams from this, right? And I think all it did was it says, okay, open Teams, and then I got it to open. Now, I had to do something a little different because in our environment that wasn't allowed. So I think I had to do is I had to grab some key in Teams, and then I had to go click chat, and then click this, and give it that app ID, and then it found it. Yeah. That's all I had to do.
Is that calculized? Is that?
Of course it is.
Okay. That's awesome.
So I'm going to be like the wizard behind the scenes. You guys are going to be chatting with the bot, and it'll actually be me.
You could totally do
Responding to code and
Yeah.
changing the decision for you.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool.
All right, so let's get to the channels part, but that's fine. So let's evolve this. Now, I talked about Lewis. What is Lewis? Lewis is Microsoft's intelligence service that allows it's just another endpoint, but they kind of help you kind of abstract it out for you. And it kind of creates this boilerplate code for me, so I don't have to worry about adding that in myself. But what's intention is if a user asks for something, right? And one of the things that we're going to ask in a minute is, I need to create a card on Trello. A user can ask for that in 10 different ways. And what Lewis attempts to do is really to derive what the intention of the user was, and match that to what is available in the bot. So I'm going to jump over to Lewis. So I'm going to, before I start programming this, I need to kind of train Lewis a little bit. So I'm going to jump over to Lewis, and like I said, since I pre-created this, this is already sitting there waiting for me. And one of the first things I do is I need to teach it an intent. So I'm going to go to the intent here. I'm going to click Add Intent. I'm going to create an intent called Add a Card.
So hang on, sorry. Where are you? You're in Lewis.
Lewis.
Oh, so Lewis.ai endpoint.
Yep.
Okay. So is this? So how do you get to this?
I would just click Lewis AI and just log in. That's it.
But you log in with an Azure
My Azure
credentials.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Because when you set up the bot,
It created
you
it for me.
configured the bot and connected you to Lewis and created the endpoint
Yeah.
for you to connect to.
Okay.
That's
So
specific to your
you.
application.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
So that's the common thread. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So when he clicked Lewis or language understanding,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
that's what auto-generated all of this for him.
And my walkthrough goes through all that. I mean,
Yeah.
And the steps he's skipping are literally 20 seconds.
Yeah. I just needed to connect the dots, and that's
Yeah.
like.
There's also a 5-minute video if you. The hard part is exactly what you're getting into now, just kind of understanding the intent and what you're about to talk about.
yeah, thank you. Exactly. Right now I'm going to say, okay, one functionality I'm going to have in the application is to add a card. So right now this is just a placeholder. I'm giving it this title.
A card being a Trello card, which is your end result.
Correct. So I save. Now I need to give it some utterances. So I need to kind of start teaching it what some ways I can ask for creating a card. So one of them obviously is add a card.
But you also can give it like a code word, like something super secret, like fill the box.
Yeah, you can actually do that. I can say create a card. I don't know, insert a card.
Chris is awesome.
That is
Also my wife.
it's a good way to do it.
New card doesn't matter. So I'm just feeding it right now a couple of different ways that it can say it. I'm gonna hit save.
Are you going to explain the not training on the right there? The predicted.
I hope you're okay with like interactive sessions.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Don't can't wait.
I can't.
Yes, I will.
Anytime Doug sees this staying on the rails, he says, this has got to go off the rails.
Right.
No, these are good questions. That's fun
No,
to see.
so yes. So now that I credit some utterances, I will start to train it now. So
Okay.
I'll click train. I'll train the application. And right now it's not a huge training exercise.
Iron is out back there. It's with an iron. You know.
This is actually kind of hilarious. It's like you're actually training your
Yep.
bot.
Yep.
So what's cool about, I want to make one qualification there, which is you're not training your bot, you're training Lewis, right? So that Lewis is the component, the actual natural language understanding service. So you don't have to, Lewis and bots work hand in hand because they make sense to work together because bots are text interaction, right?
Yeah.
But you could train Lewis to pull in data, not through a bot, potentially. You're just training Lewis as a cognitive service
You
here.
see that endpoint right there, the blue line? you could pass anything you want into there, and the
And it's
bot
gonna-
passes into that. You know,
Right.
and it's
So,
kind of, yeah.
right. So if you had an application that is completely not bot related, not built, right, just your typical bot, but you want to be able to interpret what a user is saying based on your model, you hit that endpoint.
Yeah.
So the power is when you combine them.
Yeah,
So I just want to make a clarification for anyone who's listening, right? That the idea is that you're using a cognitive service. Your bot is utilizing a cognitive service. Your bot itself is not very intelligent. It's pretty dumb. It's actually just passing.
You're really just passing whatever the person's typing into Lewis,
Exactly.
which is then trained to interpret
Yeah.
what's being passed into it
Correct.
And you think about
and react to it in the appropriate way.
And if you think about, if I didn't have this, what would I do? A ton of if statements, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, right?
But it's more than that.
Old school, right?
But
Yes, it is.
Idioms, it's language,
That's right.
you know, it's background noise, you know, slang, all that is being taken by the natural language engine.
And in Adam's demo, he's going to show what Lewis does is package you up a consumable result from that input, and then you decide how to handle that result.
And what's nice too is if someone says something that it doesn't understand, Lewis will actually capture it. And then later an admin can go in here and say, hey, I see that people are asking for it in this way, and then actually say, oh, you know, that actually makes sense, or it's connected to this intent. Or they might discover, hey, we don't have this functionality, let's add this to the bot. Like that's in Spanish. Yeah, or add this in Spanish. Yeah, I don't know how to handle multiple
We
language.
should try that.
I'm part of me wishes you didn't bring that up, but
I speak
I know
German.
you speak Spanish too. So
I speak German. We could try that. Just doing the Connecticut again.
All right, so now that we did that, we're going to hop back over here, and we're going to evolve this a little bit further because in a second. So right now, what we're going to do is we're going to keep. So I'm going to take out this. I'm going to take out this default. Actually, I'll keep the default section. So what we'll do is put some new code. So actually, there's a couple things I have to do. So since I told you I brought in those two libraries, I need to go ahead and add those two references on the top so they're accessible to me. And then I'm going to go ahead and add some code here. And as we saw in what we did in Lewis, I'm telling it right now, I'm saying, okay, if it matches the intent of add card, right? Because that's all it cares about. Because Lewis is going to take care of figuring out if it matches the intent or not. If it matches the intent of add card, I'm going to message back the user, it looks like you're trying to add a card. So I'm going to save that. It's loading. Then see, add a card.
It works in Windows.
If only you didn't have a Mac.
You
know?
I was going to get that. I knew that was going to happen. Come on.
Okay. We could all just get another class of it.
I understand.
Come on. I'm waiting. There it goes. All right, so now it says, okay, it looks like you're trying to add a card. If I feed it crap, hopefully.
It looks like you're drunk.
Oh. Well, looks like you're drunk.
Looks like you're trying to add a card.
So
There
the
you go.
first one is you called Lewis, you fed it the data, and it came back with it does match add card because it determined your intent. The
Correct.
second time, Lewis returned false, which means that dot matches add card branch never executes. Instead, it goes to dot on default, which then returns sorry, I didn't understand this.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Cool.
Now, that's kind of neat, but what if I need to pull data out of that sentence? What if I need to say, okay, add a certain type of card? Now, if I look at what we're trying to build here, and I look at the Trello board, I see that on my Trello board, right, I have a box Trello board, and it has a couple different columns. So I'm really going to need to know which one of these am I trying to add it to. So I need to extract that out of the sentence. Well, Lewis helps me out in that way because I can declare something called an entity. So let me hop back over to Lewis.
There's something called a what?
Entity.
Oh, entity.
Yeah. So I'm going to go back to add card, and I'm going to say add. Let me do add a idea card. Right? Add that, but if I hover over these different words, I can actually say add a date card. Well, that's kind of my variable, isn't it? So what if I click this and then say, okay, let me call this the list name.
That's pretty awesome.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Now you're starting to see the value. So
That's the power. Yeah, of course.
So now I can say add a variable name, card, and then, or maybe I want to make sure that insert's a part of this. Insert.
I didn't make the connection. So what is listening? Listening is the variable. Okay, I'm sorry.
All right, I'll do another one. Add a insert a idea card.
Hey Doug, this is a presentation on a training session.
So what I'm doing is I'm saying I want to extract some information, right? I want that to be now a variable. I'm teaching Lewis that if you look for this pattern, assume that next word, maybe after insert a or add a,
Right, I know,
you're going to get a variable.
but the listening, you can type anything.
Yeah, I have to call this thing listening.
You can type anything in the bot.
Don't go anywhere.
You can type anything in the bot for the list name, and then it will try to interpret that and look up that list. Is that what you're saying?
Well, ultimately that's what the bot's doing.
Okay, that's what I didn't understand.
This is just natural language. So there's some features here because this is a demo that we're not getting into as far as, pre-built, identity and everything else.
Yeah.
But all it's trying to do is take natural language, learn the areas that you're trying to pull out of that natural language,
okay.
and give it a way to call that so that with your other services can then use that. So don't think more about this than the step you're on.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, so I'm going to go back to my, I'll go back and I'll train it.
And by the way, you guys are doing that.
So, so looks like we're trying to add a card. So let me evolve this a little further. You'll see this. I'll do this all. I'm just going to replace what I have. I'm going to add a little bit more. So right now, I am going to use something called an identity recognizer, and I'm going to say, okay, let me look for if they had any identity or any entity called this name within that. So I'll save this, and we'll give it a try.
Out of curiosity, as you're doing this, does you have the ability to debug like breakpoints?
No, cannot do that. Wish though.
Adam doesn't make there is a way,
I think there's a way if we you can attach a debugger if you use Visual Studio and you're not going through this. So
I know that
Yeah.
you're using normal endpoints.
Absolutely.
All it is JSON and some authentication.
correct.
Yeah, I mean, I meant specifically this.
So let's talk about what just happened. So I added this identity recognizer. It looked for list name, and what it's going to do is I just said, send me that JSON that comes back from Lewis, so we can kind of see what's going on here. So we have entity. It figured out it was an idea, and it was a list name, the type of list name, and it gives me a confidence score. And gives me a confidence score of 86%.
That's what you want to pay attention to.
I got it. Listening confidence score.
If I said add a card without that, it should just give me, I don't know if I can find one.
No, it sounds like my wife repeating back when she's not listening to me.
It's the rewind feature.
Yeah, baby's crying.
It's the rewind feature.
Hey, honey, I'll get that in the morning.
All right.
Love you too, honey.
So let's evolve this a little bit more. So now I'm going to add a card. I'm still going to use the entity recognizer, but now I need to make it a little bit more smart where there might be a scenario where they don't say they want an identity card, they just want a card. There might be some times where they explicitly say, I want to add to the identity list. This way now I have some code here that what it will do is, if it finds one, if it doesn't find one, say, which card you want to add to. And then I will do it next, which then drops me down to this next function. So this is what they call a waterfall approach. where I'm constantly dropping into the next function, and that's how I kind of build that conversation up.
Do they have an agile approach? I'm sorry. I'll show myself out. You set me up, man.
I did. All right, so let's try it again. So let me just try add a card. What it should do is it should ask me what kind of card would you like to add. Which card would you like to add? And I would just say idea. But I don't think it's going to do nothing yet because I haven't programmed that yet. Or if I say add a idea card, then obviously what it should do is just skip that step because now it knows I want to add an idea card. So try and build a little bit more intelligence into it. Now what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to add a bunch of Trello code that's not very interesting. I'm going to add that on the bottom here. All it's doing is just, communicating with the Trello API. Some keys I got. Not very interesting. So ignore that.
But that can be your line of business app.
That could be your line of business. Absolutely.
So you've got a bot that's interpreting user intent by calling Lewis, and then you can have it perform actions in your line of business system, which in this case is going to be adding a card to Trello. But it could be anything.
It absolutely could be anything.
Time entry.
What's that? Like Chris is explaining, want to do this side, well, you want to do the technical side?
Yeah, it's a good
sales engineer in me, right? Shoot me out.
All right. So I'm going to evolve this a little bit more. So now that I know which board they want to add the Trello card to, I am now going to communicate with Trello to see does that board even exist. And as I, maybe some people can see, I have a Trello board here that has, various columns of words. I don't know what to call these things. Lists, I think. So, so now that I add that Trello code to do that validation, let me add a, let me just say add a card. Which card would you like to add to? Let's do idea. What it's going to do is now communicate with the Trello endpoint, and now I'm just patching that with what Trello gave me back, and it looks like it found okay, you do call it board. It found a board called idea. If I say maybe add a stupid card, hopefully it shouldn't say, oh. Well, that's interesting. Oh, because it's right in the match. Let me try to force it in there. No, Trello didn't find the board. Sweet. So let's go a little further. Add a little bit more. So now I'm going to say, okay, if it didn't, it's going to try to find that list by name. And if it doesn't find it, it says, sorry, couldn't find it. Otherwise, it's going to ask you, what do you want the card to say? So let me save that.
Seems like there's an opportunity here for a tool to kind of broker some of the authoring of the back and forth dialogue.
Yeah. So let's say add, and if it finds it.
But I'm sure there are, though. I'm sure there are services that do that well.
So then it's asking what do you want the card to say something.
Yeah, because you think about like this is small, but if this is a customer service agent, like the programming might be relatively simple, but the interactions between customer and source would require tens of thousands of phrases.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's different things in Lewis that I haven't even explored with, I can hook onto the sources. It can do some of that for you. I think you mentioned this predefined domain. There's a lot. This is like the simplest, demo I'm using Lewis. It's a lot more elaborate than that. So what I did was I said, okay, add an idea card. What do you want the card to say? Say something, and then it's saying, okay, so you're going to use this list, and now we're going to eventually create a card that says say something.
But you still funnel down, right? You funnel down from literally anything someone could type to your bot to recognizing the intent of the user to recognizing the specific list that the user is intending to do to recognizing what you want what the content of the card in that list is.
Yep.
Pretty cool.
Yep. Exactly. Thanks for the recap.
Well, right. I mean, that's the funneling part of it. That's what's awesome about it.
So the last part, and this is the last part of what I need to add here. So what it's going to do is say, okay, what do you want the card to say? It's going to go in here, and then it's going to say, okay, it's going to actually go ahead and actually insert the card. And then it's going to come back to me, okay, card added is an emoji because emojis are cool. And then it's going to give me some JSON back because I want to see it because I'm a geek.
An emoji into your
Is this VS Code? That's VS Code right there?
Yeah. Well, it's like a light version of it.
That's awesome. Like, and you can put emojis in your code?
Yeah. Why not?
It's an escape string.
That's phenomenal. I'm good.
Cool. That's
Rest of my life. That was over. Yeah, wait, I need a picture of that. Tweet it out.
Hours of prep and like coding into this, and I was like, that emoji's awesome.
Is that pretty much how it is, though? Like, you did that Giphy? The Giphy was hilarious. It totally just, like, made it for me.
All right, so now for this last part, I'm not going to demo into that because that's not cool. I'm going to flip over to Teams. Now, if I've done everything correctly, let's have an interaction with Teams. And in theory, if I do it here, you see it reflected in Trello. Ooh, now, so let me add a card.
I still can't get over the fact they didn't have to deploy this thing.
Need.
Just coding wire on top.
All right, so which list would you like to add to? Let's add the backlog. What would you like the card to say? Hope this works.
Yes! Wow. That's phenomenal! That's awesome!
And as we can see, card added, party emoji, and then here's some stuff that I'll get you back.
That is seriously awesome.
So, yeah, and I can add a idea card. Then it becomes even simpler because I'm providing it what list they want to add it to, and then jump and boom.
Wow. That's awesome.
Wow. That is completely two separate systems interacting with each other. That's kind of cool though, but that's not super cool.
Better emoji was super cool. Yeah. Can you one up that one?
Are you the Apple CEO? There's more?
One more thing.
One more thing.
One more thing.
Steve Jobs, we're going to call you Steve.
Come on, man.
Just for the next presentation.
Need to turn them on, man. There's always more.
We set the bar pretty low.
There's me. And sorry about
It
that.
just got lower.
That's not what I wanted.
I am.
This is being recorded, by the way.
Say hi to everyone. I'm glad I'm
Say hi to the future.
trust that. Come on, where are you? Why is it not working? Oh, gotta unlock this to trust the computer.
Using Face ID.
It's not like I do this. I do this like all the time because I'm doing mobile development. So, all right. Well, maybe I can't show you that portion of it.
Now you want to.
You could have just left the dog at a high point.
Yeah, like take something from George on this one.
Like
High point. That's it.
We're done.
No, I'm not giving up, guys.
Great audience.
Guys, I'm not giving up. I'm not giving up. So, see all my hat.
Oh, there's the phone. I see. I see what you're trying to do.
You're on to me. But like I said, and again, I just don't want to, I don't want to restate this. All this works immediately, and I can't show you because Microsoft's being a jerk.
Take it out. There you go. We all do demos, and we all know how bad they go.
You're in Teams on your iPhone.
On my iPhone. I automatically get a mobile app for free, or loosely.
I mean, we misspelled it and everything. I still knew what you were saying. Improper grammar.
Add
power of natural language.
right? And look at that. Hi.
So right from your phone.
Right from my phone.
Wow.
So what we going to do is
Phenomenal.
Well, I was showing you my
The phone. Oh, okay. He was doing it through his phone. So he was interacting with the bot through his phone, and he wanted to show it.
No, I just remember your face being on the screen.
Yeah, he was trying to get a direct.
Adam is kind of vain. That's all.
All right, I thought you were going to do something with the video recognition.
No.
All right,
I overplayed it.
I do have like a sort of a larger question about this. I mean, obviously, you demonstrated how not only to create the bot, but how to train Lewis to understand what you wanted it to do with certain commands.
Yeah.
I would expect that if you build something like this for your company or a client or whatever, that there would be some sort of ongoing maintenance to support or continue to build Lewis as the requirements change over time, right? I mean, this is not a one-time deal in most cases. Like, obviously, if you just wanted to add a card, you're done, right? But I would expect that most bots would be more sophisticated than that, and you would have to sort of evolve them and retrain Lewis over time. Is that the expectation?
That is absolutely the expectation. So one thing that Lewis does, and I'm probably going to mess up where it's located, is it constantly keeps track of the negative, right? It didn't find anything. It keeps track of that over time.
Yeah.
So it actually will tell you all the ones it couldn't determine what it was. So you can actually see what people are asking for, and then connect those two intents, or create new intents, or handle it like that.
So sort of what I'm equating this to, and maybe this is a little bit simplistic, is I'm thinking of the enterprise search manager who's checking the best bets and things like that from SharePoint a long time ago. Mm-hmm. It's sort of like that, right? You're checking in on Lewis periodically to see what's not being found, and then updating it to accommodate those searches, those failed searches, and make them work.
Absolutely. No, you hit the nail on the head. It's exactly what it does. I wish I could show you.
Well, I'm sure there's a reporting API plugin.
And then on top of this, everything is also managed through application insights. So you get there's a wealth.
Through Azure, so you have your own sort of BI panel for this.
Yes. So, and I think I even hooked it up. I never even looked at it. But yeah, right here. So I can, there's already, it recommends you do this. You already can hook it onto application insights and see all that.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome. Pretty powerful.
No, it's pretty neat. And yeah, I mean, that's the demo. Any questions?
I guess so.
I can repeat them if you want. Start from the beginning.
You know, the funny part, Doug, was you got really excited. You were asking a question, and I'm like, having knowing a little bit about this, I'm like, he's going to ask you, or he's going to answer it if you just gave him 30 more seconds.
It's all good. It's all good. All right, that's it, guys.
I thought that was a wonderful demo, guys.
Yeah, that was awesome. Thank you. Good job.
I like the partnership too. Like, are you guys effectively? Technically,
yeah, that's worked out
like explaining business aspects. You okay? That's pretty good.
It is my belief that people should always speak in pairs. Very different, personalities, should be